Cold calling, arguably the bane of the existence of every salesperson. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you 7 ways that are very much relevant today how to improve your cold call game. All right, I'm Eddie. I am the head of sales in a big multinational. I have generated well over $100 million in sales directly. I've trained dozens of salespeople with no prior sales experience in dozens of companies to become high-performing individuals. All right. Amongst my clients, I've had Fortune 500 firms, the likes of Microsoft, Cartier, Porsche, Richard Mille, the likes, all the way to SMEs or family businesses. I've worked in Taiwan, South Africa, the Middle East, Europe. So I've worked in many different settings and different products and industries. So what I have to teach has resounding success. Not now, it has worked for 2 decades now, okay? Now, pay attention, please. Number 1 point, and this one is, I literally had a couple of outreaches of people cold calling me yesterday about this. The majority of salespeople don't do this, whether it's high ticket, mid ticket, or low ticket, all right? Those 7 points. The number 1 thing, they can't deliver their hook and their pitch for shit. For shit. What I mean by this, when they're reaching out to me, I can tell they're making the words up. I can tell they don't know what they're supposed to say. It's not exactly planned. It's not consistent. They don't know their stuff, right? Now, you might think you get lucky, I can just YOLO it, whatever. But remember one thing. 80% of what you're doing is nonverbal. It's your tonality, it's your voice, it's body language. It does matter even though you're on the phone. That conveys a lot of information to me, the person you're reaching out to, your prospect, or any other prospect. It doesn't have to be me, right? So when you're feeling anxious, when you're scared, when you're freaking out, when you're hating every segment of the cold call, we can sound it. We can hear it, sorry. Sales is the transfer of emotions. Now, if your emotions are pretty shit, well, guess what? The guy's going to receive a shit sandwich. Does he want it? No. So improve on that. How? It's very simple. It's so simple, yet nobody does it. Number 1 thing, have your outreach laid out in a script and learn it by freaking heart. There's no beating around the bush on this one. If you're into competitive sports or anything that requires preparation, you know as much as me that having the same outcome on and on and on will deliver results. If you're wearing a different jersey, different shoes for cycling, different helmet, different bike every time, you don't think it's going to matter on your time difference if you're lapping on a circuit? Yes, it does. It's exactly the same for sales. So learn it by heart. It needs to be consistent. How do you do that? By role-playing. All right? I don't recommend role-playing with your mom, your dad, your girlfriend, your friends, because frankly speaking, they don't give a rat's ass and they're just going to be nice to you. If you're working in a team, get another guy, ask him to role play and vice versa. He'll tell you where you screw up and where he screws up, and you can improve on that game. Number 2, record your calls. Every single one of them. I constantly have those things where they tell me, calls are recorded for quality insurance purposes. Yet I've never ever spoken to a salesperson that listens to his calls. Ever. And it's been 2 decades. If it happens, I'm waiting to find them, right? Because I always ask this question. So listen to yourself, all right, and improve on it. Now, I know what you're thinking. Ugh, no, I don't want to listen to myself. I sound horrible. That's your freaking ego speaking, guys and girls. Leave your ego outside the room. Do a little bit of critical thinking here. For critical thinking, you need to observe, and you leave your ego outside the equation. We don't care how he feels. To improve things, we need to be in a neutral state of mind. All right? That's called critical analysis. So put your ego in the trash and start looking at what you're doing well and what you're doing wrong in your outreach. Maybe you're fumbling. Maybe you're using very complex wording. Maybe you're taking too long. Maybe you can sound 50 words into only 15. Simplification is the mother of all improvements, all right? And that leads me to point number 2. When you're building your outreach and you're learning it, make it sound like it's you speaking, not your sales director or your head of sales or whoever built that script. Because that's him speaking, not you. That is the number 1 task I asked anyone that joins my teams. I always ask them, here's the script, make it your own. It needs to sound like you're speaking. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take trial and error and iterations, all right? So changes. But I cannot have you sound one way when you're doing your pitch and another way when you're you're answering questions or you're facing rebuttals. The language, the tonality, the way you're doing things has to be exactly consistent. So how do I do that? By making it sound like you. And if you don't think that matters, look at yourselves in your own personal life. When you're trying to convince your friends to go to a place or convince anyone to do anything on a personal level, you sound so much more convincing than in sales. Why? Because it's you speaking, not the company LLC script. So ultimately, by doing this, you're going to naturally improve. Now remember, it takes time, right? We'll go through that a little bit later. Point number 3, and this one is going to be the intellectual aspect of it. Right now, myself, I'm experiencing stress. You're experiencing stress every time you're doing a cold call. It's perfectly freaking normal, all right? We associate stress. If I ask anyone in the streets or even you in the comments, you're going to say, oh, stress is bad. Why? If we look at it at the core principle, it is just very unpleasant. It is a mobilization mechanism from our body, right? From our brain. Now, I'm always curious, always trying to understand why things are this way. And very interestingly enough, I stumbled a couple of months ago on 2 researchers called Dr. Yeager and Dr. Crum. And they've done consistent research for I think more than 3 decades now on the effects of stress. Interestingly enough, stress is a neutral stance. All right? We always think, the majority of us, that it's negative. But if you associate it with something positive, positive things will happen. I'm not going to bore you with the details of the study, but it's that simple. If you associate it with something negative, you'll get only the negative traits. If you associate it with something positive, you will have positive traits. I'm not saying that you can make sales pleasant and it will have benefits solely, because we both know it can have effect on your health, it can affect on other things. But from a sales perspective, if you can harvest that enhancement mindset that stress is generating, you'll perform better, all right? If you're interested to know more about this, I can link the surveys and the research papers below, or I can even give you a YouTube video where they're going through this. It's about 2 hours long. Very fascinating subject, because we all suffer from stress, and you'll become a better person by doing this. But remember, this stress mechanism that you're dealing with when you're doing your outreach, it is part of the learning process. The same way when you're working out your muscles, I mean, obviously, the pain means that the muscle is growing. Stress is a bit more of a delay in what you're learning, but you're actively trying to meet resistance inside. And by fighting this resistance, you're having a growth mindset, which is also an interesting subject. So that leads me to point number 4. Preparation is everything. Now, I'm sure you know about Sun Tzu, The Art of War, which says, whoever prepares the most wins the battle. Well, it is very much the same in sales. All right, so let me collect my thoughts here, because I don't want to get lost. Yes, so you have to think 2 ways when you're doing your outreach. There is what you intrinsically will feel, do, and make. That's what is under your control and what you're feeling internally, and and the second part is what's extrinsic, so that what you're not in control. Anything that is intrinsic, you need to be on top of your game. Your sales pitch, for example, that's very much intrinsic. If you don't know what the hell you're saying, well, you're freaking out, you're stressing out, right? If you know, well, suddenly you're going to be a lot more in the moment, and you're going to be able to, face whatever they're saying with a lot more confidence. So preparation is everything. Now, depending if it's low ticket, high ticket, mid ticket, and the complexity of your sales process, that will require more preparation. In my case, I have a process and a product that is very, very, very high ticket. It is a very complex exercise where I require a lot of data and preparation and research to make sure that before I reach out to them, I know exactly what catalyst is going to make them respond, in theory. But ultimately, you have to think in a heuristics fashion. I don't want to go into details of what heuristics is in this video, because that will be a future video of mine, sorry. Ooh la la. And the second thing is, once you can start having a high level of preparation, it will compound over time. If you work in any niche, if you understand about one client more into details, you start knowing about all the clients. Because, well, if you're talking to hotels, what is the main difference between a Marriott and a Hilton? Some branding, but effectively they're just hotels, right? Same segments, etc. Last point on this. If you don't think preparation matters, I'll speak out of experience here, because it just literally happened to me yesterday. Sorry, I have a thing in my eye. I had a guy reach out to me. He didn't know my name. He didn't know what my company was doing. He just had, I don't know, maybe ChatGPT gave him a bad summary of what my business was or anything like that, because it didn't sound like anything like what we were doing. The problem made no sense. Nothing made sense. And within 5 seconds, 3 seconds, I was like, finished. I knew. You did no efforts in trying to prepare for this. I'm going to make absolutely zero effort in trying to even entertain this because it doesn't make sense to me. And you didn't prepare. So you're telling me I'm not important to you. Why would I be important? Why would I value what you're telling me? That is the inner monologue of your prospects. And that freaking happens. If you don't believe me, next time anyone try and sell you anything, look at what's happening inside your brain. Oh my God, this guy is trying to sell me something. Oh my God, this guy doesn't know. Oh my God. So that's it. Point number 5. And I mean, this is not groundbreaking, but sales is a numbers game. There's 2 schools. Either you're fully quantity driven or fully quality driven. So one means you just pick up a sales sheet and go through thousands, hundreds, whatever it is of calls a day. And the other one is you don't have that many calls, but you make sure that every single one is as prepped as much as possible. Now, we're in a sales game where it means we're personally vested in the outcome, which is commissions and sales, right? That is wrong. Sales is a process with different stages. Lead generation, qualifying or outreach, meaning you generate that meeting, and then you have your pitch meeting or your sales meeting or whatever it is, and then you have the actual sales itself or the follow-ups or whatever your process is. These are different stages with different outcomes. First one is lead generation. Second one is when you're doing a cold call, which is where we're at right now. The outcome, what we want, is a meeting. That's the only thing we should focus on. We should not focus on, oh my God, I've lost the sale if I didn't generate the meeting. I haven't had the sales meeting yet. How the hell do you know if they even qualify? So stop putting so much pressure on yourself, all right? That's it. It's either yes, we'll meet, no, we're going to meet in the months, in a year, whatever it is, There's always new trials. Nothing's left in infinity when it comes to the cold calls. I still talk to clients. In my business, my churn rate is about 18 months, so I reach out to people every 18 months. Sometimes the same individuals, sometimes different individuals. It's not the end of the world, all right? It's a numbers game. I'll go later on in a different video how we can try and mix and match a hybrid of quality and quantity by trying to leverage on things that do generate better returns, but that is for a later video, and please let me know if that's of interest to you in the comments below, because that's ultimately how you make more money. Now, point number 6, and this one kind of falls between every single point and makes sense for every single one of them, but in itself, it needs to be done. You need to be observing what you're doing. So just like the fact that you need to be consistently delivering your outreach, you need to be looking at everything you're doing. If you're not collecting data on your performance on cold calling, then you're not going to be able to quantify what's going wrong and what's being successful. And if you can't do that, how the fuck are you going to improve it? Right? If every time you say, I don't know, let's meet up next week at a cool meeting, whatever, like some call to action that sounds lame as fuck, if you don't mention it, if you don't measure that, you're going to still use it. You need to say, oh wow, 70% of the time me saying this doesn't work. Or me 50% of the time saying that doesn't really work. Okay, maybe I'm taking too long. There's different ways of quantifying and qualifying everything you do. Again, I'm not going to go into details here. Ideally, your company should be doing that. But if you can't observe and quantify what you're doing well or not, you can't improve. The second thing is, on top of that, if you can't observe what's going on and what's being the pushbacks, right, which we touched in the index failure video, preparation is key. If you know that rebuttals are coming, why the hell are all of you freaking out the second they happen? When people start asking questions, every salesperson is like, oh my God, and starts answering right away the question. Sales is the transfer of emotions, and whoever asks the questions is in control of the meeting. If you don't think that's important, well, think about any interrogation in any war movie. Who's the one in control? The guy torturing the crap out of the poor prisoner of war by asking questions, or the guy sitting in a chair getting his ass beaten? What is the guy leading the interrogation doing? He's asking questions. Same thing. All right, so if you know they're coming, prepare for them. It's always the same. I don't have time. I'm not interested. Blah, 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 blah. If you don't even know what to say at this point, again, what are you expecting? It's the definition of insanity. Same for your call to action. There's a hot tip for you, by the way, on this one. You need to specifically know when you're proposing the meeting to those individuals. You don't leave it to randomness. All right? I always tell my team, guys, when you're asking them to meet, you need to know exactly what times and dates you're going to want to meet with them. Give them 3 options. You start with 1, saying Monday, 9 a.m. No, I can't do Monday, la la la. Okay, then Monday 4. No. Tuesday 9 a.m. Statistically, I have observed, after 2 decades of this nearly, that every time you pass a certain level of call to action, they automatically surrender. All right? They automatically surrender. Not the majority, not all of them, but the majority of them. So that's the hot tip for you. Ask 3 times. Ask 3 times. Last thing, is your hook interesting? And that comes back to preparation. If your hook sucks or doesn't deliver any results, you need to look at improving it, right? You need to do iterations of your hook. Last point, which is, we've touched upon it in the previous video, you're a victim of your own biases and beliefs, which are the sums of all your experiences and your upbringing, all right? Very interestingly enough, there's someone called Wilbert that has done a quadrant of the sums of your experiences and beliefs and how they affect you. All right, I'm not going to go into details here, but in a later video I will. What this means is when you were growing up as a kid, probably your parents said, stop asking questions, stop interrupting people, stop answer the questions we're being told. All these things weighed heavily on you as an adult. Now, it was wonderful as a kid because it protected you from having really terrible things happen to you, but now as an adult, your job is to actually get in touch with people. So if you start operating still as a kid, biases and beliefs, then this is going to impact you. And, I'm not saying it's going to change overnight, but just being aware of it, well, you'll be able to change. The last part, which is obviously the sum of all your experiences, and I've gone through this in the previous video as well, stop treating all the salespeople that reach out to you like trash. Respect their time, respect their effort, all right? Don't internalize thinking you're responsible for every salespeople that doesn't know how to do his job. You're not that person. You're not that person, okay? And become a better version of yourself by doing those 3 principles. And suddenly, you're going to start noticing improvements, all right? Now, do those 7 things consistently over time, especially the whole quantifying and qualifying part and improving part. You will see improvements. You will see improvements. All right? It's that simple. But you need to train and you need to be aware of what's going on. All right? I'll see you around for next week's video. Please let me know if you agree, disagree, if you have additional points. Please like and subscribe because obviously that's helping me share more content to more salespeople, and that's how the algorithm works. So it's not out of the kindness of my heart. Yeah. See you around, guys, and hope to see you next